Now let's take a look at the home page. And the reason we're jumping around a little bit at the beginning is because I want to be able to cover all of the basics just for those that want to be able to grasp all of the basics about custom theme building without jumping into styling. So the goal here is to cover all of the basics in the first half of the course and deal with the styling and all of the small details later on. This will make it useful for you if you're building your own theme and you don't necessarily want to copy all of the styling that I have prepared for this theme. So let's take a look at the home page. As you can see, the home page is divided into sections. So we're not building out the whole home page in our code. We're actually letting Shopify do most of the heavy lifting here. And this is done because if we want to reuse our sections on the home page, we can easily do that without having to code up any new sections. And we can see that we can drag and drop pretty much any section anywhere on the home page, and this makes it very useful. You can also go into the sections and actually change the text and the image and whatever else we want to put into the section. So we're essentially building out a section of the CMS. So let's take a look at how this works. If we go back into our code, as you might remember, we had a folder called sections, and this is exactly where all of the sections will go. So the first section that we want to build is the hero image, and the hero image section is this one right here. So let's go ahead and create a new file, and we'll call this hero.liquid. You can also call this banner image or full-size image. So different themes call it differently. We'll just call it hero for simplicity's sake. And let's take a look at the documentation and where you can learn more about this. So once we go into our documentation, besides liquid reference over here, down at the bottom, we can see sections. And let's just click sections. And there are two things that a section needs to have. And that's the HTML part and then the schema part. So I'm going to be talking more about the schema, and we have some options here when we have to define the schema. And the schema is actually what goes into creating the blocks for our CMS. And I think the best way to actually learn this is to code something up. So you can definitely read the documentation here, but let's just jump into it and make a section. So the first thing that we want to do is create a new div, and we'll give this a class name of hero image. And then I'll also add a class name of section, and I'll explain why I'm doing this once we actually start styling. And then inside of the div, let's create an image, and we'll give it a source. And for now, we're going to leave the source blank, and we'll jump into the schema. So in order to define the schema, we need to open the curly braces, add the percent signs, and we'll type in schema here. And then we'll need to close the schema as well. And inside of the schema, we're going to have a JavaScript object. So we can just open that. And the first thing that we usually want to do inside of the schema is define the name of the section. So we'll type in name, and we'll name this one hero image. And we need a comma after that for the next item inside of our object. And the next item will be settings. And under settings is what the settings are for the CMS. So just to give you a reference, the settings are these parts over here. So the image and the heading that we'll have to add for this section. And the section will be an array inside of our object. So let's open that as well. And inside of the array, we will have more objects. So let's give this one a type. And the type is what we need to define the type to be. And for this one, it's image picker. And let me show you where you can grab all of the types. So the types are predefined by Shopify. So as you can see at the very beginning here, we have the name that we're predefining. And then we can also give it a class name, but we don't want to do that right now. And then once we actually jump into the settings, we can see that we can give it an ID, a type, a label, and a default value. And then under the section setting, we can click on settings schema.json. And again, the documentation for this might change, so it might be in different places. All you have to know is how it's called, and it's called the settings schema. So once we go all the way down to the bottom here, well, not the bottom, but somewhere near the middle, we can see the basic input setting types. And we have the text, which is a single line text field, text area, which is a multiple line text area, and there's a bunch of other ones like radio, select, checkbox, and things like that. And then we have some more complicated one near the end over here, which are the color, font picker, collection, products, and then we have the image picker right here. So as we can see here, we have the type, the ID, and then the label. So actually, let's just copy all of this. We'll go back inside of our code and paste this in here. And we'll give it an ID of image. And then the label, we can also just give it image. And one thing to keep in mind is that the last object inside, the last item inside of an object does not have a comma. So make sure that you don't make that mistake, because Shopify is very picky about the last place commas. And we can add a preset as well. And the preset is what will actually allow us to find the section inside of our homepage. Any section that does not have a preset will not appear inside of our homepage section selector. So let's make sure to add that. And the presets will also be an array. And we can give it a name. And it'll be the same one that is at the top there. And then we can give it a category. And then we'll just give it a category of image. So let's click save now. And we can go back inside of our theme. So let's go to the customizer. So the one thing we actually still need to add for our section to appear in our customizer is inside of templates. Let's go into index. And inside of the index right now, we are not saying that the content from our sections to be appearing inside of our homepage. So let's go ahead and delete all of this because we will not need it. And then we can put 2 curly braces and type in content for index. And we're basically saying here that on the index page, which is the home page, we just want to put all of the content from our CMS. So let's go ahead back into our theme and we can refresh. And we can see that the section appeared, the add section button. So once we click add section, we can see that the category is image, and then we have our hero image section over here, and we can just click select. And now we have added a section, but nothing has changed because we actually didn't insert our schema into the HTML. So let's go ahead and do that now and see what we get. So back in our code, let's close the index.liquid and go inside of the hero image. And let's actually use our schema. So inside of the source, let's open double curly braces, and this is how you access the schema. And we can type in section.settings.image. And what we're basically saying here is that we want to go inside of this section's settings and then access the image ID. And then let's put a pipe. Shopify calls the symbol a pipe, and we'll give it a filter of image, URL, and then master. And I'm gonna go into detail more about what the filters mean in a later video, but right now I just want to add this here. And let's click save and go back into our customizer and refresh. And then let's select an image. So I have a bunch of images here, but if we go all the way down, I want to grab the one that I had at the top there. Or we can just add this one. There we go. So our image is now inside of our theme, but again, it's not styled, so it looks out of proportion, but that's totally okay. So congrats, you've just created your first CMS customization where now we can add as many hero images as we want to our theme without having to do any additional work. So I'll see you in the next video.